2022 Hyundai Elantra N Line, is this a better compact sports sedan than the rival Honda Civic Si? Today we're going to find out. Now, just a couple weeks ago, Hyundai flew me out to Atlanta Motorsports Park to test drive the Elantra N, the top version of this car. But we dial it back just a little bit here, and what we have is the N Line, which is more of a direct competitor, and it's definitely taking shots at the Honda Civic Si. First thing we're going to do is talk about the front bumper. This front bumper is specific to the N Line, and I actually prefer it over the full-blown N front bumper. I like the N Line badge inside of it as well. Underneath you see an intercooler and then the radiator above that. Yes, this is turbocharged like the Honda Civic Si. We'll talk about powertrains here in a little bit. We have these specific N Line 18-inch wheels here. Glossy black, kind of this two-tone finish. I think they look really awesome. Now, going down the side, we also have a side skirt specific to this model. We also have the N Line badge on the front fender. Blacked out window surrounds. We also have heated outside mirrors. As we come around the back, we have a nice sloping roof line finished with a deck lid spoiler on the back. We have Elantra typed out onto the lift gate as well, and a nice little diffuser at the bottom. Dual tip exhaust back here. I love the real tips. Inside the trunk, we have about 14 cubic feet of space. If I lift this up, yes, we have a full spare tire. That's what I'm talking about. And this is pretty much the identical space that we have in the Honda Civic Si for comparison. You can also fold down these rear seats back here for more capacity. Getting under the hood, and yes, this is a very heavy hood. We have the 1.6 liter turbocharged inline four-cylinder, around 201 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. When you put that on paper against a Honda Civic Si, it's actually really comparable. There we go. I put the kickstand up because that hood is ridiculously heavy. Now, unlike the manual exclusive Honda Civic Si, this can of course have the 6-speed manual, but this has the optional package where it gives you the 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. It's going to allow for definitely faster shifts. We'll try 0 to 60 here in a little bit. Inside the Elantra N Line, one color choice, that's black, accented with red stitching. In terms of materials, we have soft touch on top of the gauge cluster and soft touch on the dash, but you go to the door trim where your arm could be resting with the windows down, and it's actually hard touch. Now, the two things that blow my mind about this interior are actually the shifter that feels like it's taken straight out of the 8-speed DCT full-blown N Line, as well as this steering wheel, this black with red stitching with the little N logo at the bottom. To me, this feels like the exact same steering wheel that I had on the Elantra N or Kona N a few weeks back. Hyundai gives us massive paddle shifters to row through your gears with the 7-speed dual clutch. On lesser trim Elantras, you have this circle on the left-hand side of the instrument cluster that does like nothing. But here in the N Line is where you see the maturation of that circle. You have this drive mode button that you can switch between normal, sport, and smart mode. Behind the steering wheel, you have analog gauges. Long live those analog gauges. Tachometer on the left, and then the speedometer in the middle with an analog fuel gauge as well. To the right of that is a tiny 4-inch MID. Doesn't give you a whole lot of information, but it does give you a digital speedometer if you want that, and of course all your miles per gallon and trip info. Now, the Civic Si in America for this new generation ditched heated seats. Luckily, we still have the heated seats in this vehicle. We also have 4 knobs. We have the quadfecta of the volume tuning and dual climate control knobs. I love that. We have a very modest 8-inch screen in here, which is the same size in the Civic Si, if I remember correctly. And the sound system in here sounds every bit as good as that Bose sound system in the Si. We also have a traditional handbrake in here, which is awesome, and I'd probably enjoy using it more if this was the 6-speed manual, but it's good to have it nonetheless. Backup camera's pretty good. We have a wireless charger, 2 USB ports, and a 12-volt auxiliary port. There is no USB-C or any USBs in the back either. Hyundai's also given us a sunroof in this model. And one last thing, this does have aluminum pedals and a dead pedal, as well as the Elantra N Line mats. Getting into the back seat, it is a very pedestrian experience back here. Hard plastic on the back of these seats, which is not going to be that comfortable if you're over 6 feet tall. I can feel my knees pressing into this hard plastic back here, and the seat is set up for me. The door decoration's very plain. It's not nearly as ornate as up front, no red stitching or anything like that. We do have cup holders with this fold down armrest, but no vents, no USBs back here. But I don't want to be cramped anymore, so I'm getting out. I didn't talk much about the seats earlier. They are comfortable. They do have some cool stitching and some cool designs on the bolstering as well, and as well as the end in the middle of the seat. I think they look awesome. Now, before we start ruining our fuel economy and such, I'm getting around 35 miles per gallon on average. I've been idling it quite often, but it really depends on your driving habits. So yeah, 35 is definitely attainable for the average person. Get on the brakes hard here, and now I love the brakes in this vehicle. The front brakes have been enlarged versus a normal Elantra. Super linear, super progressive, and they communicate very well back to the driver. I think I like them actually better than the Honda Civic Si's brakes. Unlike the Honda Civic Si, we do not have radar cruise control. We do have Hyundai's pretty good lane keep system though. I'm around 50 miles an hour. I'm in sport mode. I'm gonna see how responsive this 7-speed dual clutch is just by hammering down and go. It's not lightning quick by any means, but it does pick the gear faster than I'd say most automatic transmissions do when you put that sort of load on it. Putting it into sport mode, using the paddle shifters, like I mentioned, they're massive. Like the downshifts are really quick when you want them to be. Upshifts, so fast. So fast. It's very enjoyable just to fly through the gears with this paddle shifter. In terms of suspension, this has a huge upgrade over the standard Elantras out there. This has a multi-link rear. The standard Elantra has a torsion beam system, so we have a little bit more sophisticated driving mechanics here compared to the normal Elantra, but nowhere nearly as good as the Elantra N, and I don't expect it to be because this vehicle is like $5,000 cheaper, but man, for $5,000, the Elantra N is just so much better. But that car's in a whole nother category, I know, but $5,000 is not that much. Anyways, Honda Civic Si, how does this feel in the turns versus that vehicle? How's the ride quality? Well, the Honda is maybe a little bit stiffer, but I feel like it's damped better, it handles the bumps better. Now, no cars in this class that I've tested have good road insulation or wind insulation, and that's definitely the case here. But unlike the Si, at least you have a decent engine note coming into the cabin, as well as the decent sounding exhaust, which there's like no exhaust sound on the Si. The Civic Si also has a limited slip differential, which if you want a limited slip in the Elantra, you have to go for the Elantra N. I forgot to mention earlier, this does have wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. I love that feature. We also have that in the Civic Si, by the way. Get into the brakes hard so we can do a quick 0 to 60. I love the brakes in this vehicle, and there is no torque braking. Like, it lets me to rev to like 1500 RPM and go. Like, there's no launch to it, but man, the upshifts are super quick. So 7.06, I'm gonna have to try to neutral drop it to see if I can actually do that to get a harder, more aggressive launch. But the upshifts on the 7-speed are really lightning fast, as I would say, much faster than I could do on a manual transmission. But I feel like I might actually be faster in the manual because I can launch it a lot harder without like having a neutral drop like I have to do in this vehicle potentially. Okay, I'm gonna neutral drop it about 2500 RPM and go. Oh, it won't let me do it. What? We're gonna try that again. It won't let me neutral drop to save the transmission, I'm guessing. 2500 RPM again, and it won't let me do it. How disappointing. So I'm actually faster 0 to 60 in the Honda Civic Si than this vehicle, even though this has, my gosh, even though this has a dual clutch automatic transmission. Now, if you're taking it on the track, there's no doubt that this is going to be easier to drive faster than the manual of this car, as well as the manual of the Honda Civic Si. But I have to say, I'm actually a little bit disappointed that you can't launch this car for anything decent. I'm gonna throw this Elantra N Line into the turns up here. It feels really good when you take through the turns. Not quite as inspiring, I don't think, as the Honda Civic Si, but I'm gonna go into this turn at about 45. and here we go. It does it really well, and then we go some harsh bumps right away, and it handles those harsh bumps really well. So it helps to have that multi-link rear suspension for just overall ride quality. And I have to say, like, that felt really good in the turn. Not quite as like inspiring or confidence inspiring as a Honda Civic Si, but it very well might be able to keep up. Now, I apologize to you guys out there. I didn't get around to answering your questions this time around. I was a little bit time constrained, but hopefully I can answer those questions down in the comments below as best of my ability. So this vehicle, as it's equipped, is priced around 27,000 US dollars, just under what we see for the Honda Civic Si by like 1,000. And that's because this has the really expensive optional transmission, the dual clutch, which I don't recommend. After me trying to launch the vehicle, it was not very satisfying. Once you're up to speed, it's lightning quick, but like I want to have like that rocket thrust sensation right off the line, and you just can't get it with this transmission. So go for the go for the manual, save some money in the process. So the Elantra N Line is definitely targeted towards the Honda Civic Si buyers, and there's probably a waiting list for Si buyers out there to get your hands on that car. So it might be easier to get your hands on this N Line, and it might also be advantageous for you to have an automatic. Yes, it's not that satisfying compared to a manual, but like it's way easier to drive. You don't have to think. Like, it's a lot less stressful than driving a manual transmission on your day-to-day basis, and it should be more fuel efficient as well. The sound system, the heated seats, the wireless phone integration, it's all there. You know, maybe we could have had a higher resolution, or just like maybe the large screens that we see in the Elantra N, but that would have really cranked up the price. I'm happy with the 8-inch screen, and I do still like the analog gauges. I do enjoy this 1.6 liter turbo. We see this engine in a ton of Hyundai and Kia products, and it does really well here. And by the way, one of my favorite things about it is when you come to a stop, the vehicle's like completely quiet. And it's because it will idle itself lower, or should I say, it lowers the idle RPMs to less than 1,000. It's like 750, and it feels like the engine is off. So the Honda Civics all have this start-stop engine technology, so it probably gets slightly better fuel economy. But yeah, you still have that, you know, tacky and not that, you know, premium feeling of the engine kicking on and off. This just brings that idle down low. You don't feel any vibrations. You can't hear the engine at all, and I don't know why more manufacturers aren't doing that to their engines when you're at a stop, because the second you let off the brake, the idle kicks back up to around 1,000 RPM, so it can help lunge the car forward. Like, I love that feature, and it's very smart of them to implement that instead of a start-stop system. But if you can drive a manual, skip this dual clutch 7-speed DCT. It's a generation behind the 8-speed DCT that we see in the full-blown N products, and it shows. I think this is a very good car if you can get it around 25K. Much more than that, Honda Civic Si is still overall a better package, but if that car is just not available, you can't get your hands on it, there's a long waiting list, this is an excellent, real close second place beneath that car. And I wish Hyundai would have given me a manual version of this so I can really test it apples to apples against the Honda Civic Si. But man, it's cool that Hyundai is producing these fun cars here in 2022, and it's just it's a really good experience overall in this Elantra N Line, and I'm happy we have it on the market. Anyways, I'm gonna end it there. I'll see you down below, like I mentioned before, answering your questions to the best of my ability. I'll see you in the next video, and as always, peace out.